Hey everybody, today I will be talking about how I fell in love with cars. I guess it started when I started watching the TV series called Batman in the 1970s when I was a little boy. That show was on every day after school, so I told myself when I got a car of my own, I want to have all kinds of switches and buttons inside of my car or whatever. There was another TV series, it was a cartoon called Speed Racer. More buttons and more switches. And now I was really, I already know that those cartoon cars were science fiction, but the seed was planted. And if you look at my cars over the year, you see the influence that came to me. This was the era of car magazines. Road and Track, Car and Driver, Motor Trend. I knew the stats of every car sold in the United States. I mean everything. 0 to 60 time, top speed, quarter mile, slalom, and the max G's on the skid pad. I studied that more than my school books. But like every preteen, I was trying to talk my dad into buying me a cool car. That wasn't gonna happen. By this time, I was in high school. I lived in a little town called Newhall. It's close to Magic Mountain, 30 minutes away from Hollywood. But in my town, kids at my school had either a pickup truck or a beat up old 66 Mustang or a 67 Firebird or a 4-door Chevy. The poor kids drove their grandmother's hand-me-downs, usually Pontiacs or old Dodges or Plymouths. Most of those cars had slant 6 engines. Not even V8s. That was just basic transportation back then. But the kids who had cool dads seemed to have the money to buy the V8 Mustangs rather than the slant 6 cars. That's what we were playing with that back then. That story is coming up right after the break. This video is brought to you by Aura. Have you ever Googled your name? If you have, you were probably shocked to see some of your personal information floating around for the whole world to see. Every once in a while, I Google myself just for fun. I'm always surprised what kind of things are floating around the internet. It's just creepy that these companies have this information on me. So this is what they do. These data brokers are making money hand over fist by selling your info to robocallers, spammers, and in some cases, much worse. This is why I'm talking about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers who are exposing your information and then submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to do that. So let Aura handle all of it for you. Now you can get off of all of those lists. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link here below, aura.com/Craig. Aura does so much more to protect you and your family from online threats that you can't even see. It's really easy to set up so you don't have to bother downloading several different apps just to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft, insurance, and even more. You get everything at one affordable price. So let Aura do all the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. What did I get when I got my license? I got a 1981 Isuzu I-Mark. Its only appeal was it was rear-wheel drive, but with just 79 horsepower. That motor was also used in the Chevy LUV pickups, so they weren't fast, but they had a lot of parts for them. So I installed a header and a bigger carburetor, and it was still slow. This actually was my dad's first company car, but I had to take over the payment, which was about $229. In today's dollars, that would be $625. At the time, this was back in 1982, I was making $84 a week after taxes. The minimum wage was $3.10. So I decided to paint the car Porsche's guards red. I modified a Kamei front air dam from a Mazda GLC, and I fit it to my car. I fashioned my own side skirts. I rigged up some clearance lights from a Big Rig and hung on the car. There were no neon lighting kits back then. Oh man, I feel like I was the OG racer. Anyway, the car was still slow, but it had a great stereo system, good, and an air conditioner, good. The cars my friends owned back then didn't have AC, so the girls would ride with me. Smart. Right. After a couple of years with that bomb, I wanted something faster. So I bought a V6 2.6 liter Mercury Capri. At that time, those cars were produced in Cologne, Germany. The engine had no timing chain and no timing bed. It used nylon cogs. Instead of my weak sauce 79 horsepower Isuzu, this car made 107 horsepower from the factory. Unfortunately, I blew the engine in about 7 months, so I had to learn how to rebuild an engine. Back then, there was no YouTube, no internet. I was working at a place called Super Shops in Van Nuys where they sold performance parts. And I found a book that showed how to fix anything on this car, and I still have it to this day. And there was a guy who used to come into our store. He had a hot rod shop down the corner. He offered to put my car on the dyno to help me get it running. So he was playing with the timing. We upped the compression with bigger pistons, and the car made 117 horsepower at the wheel when it was done. So that was fun. I drove that car for about another 2 years. Then I jumped into Datsun Z cars. I fell madly in love with them. My first was a 74.5 260Z. After that, I had 2 more Datsun Zs, a 1970 wide body, and then the last one was a red one that I bought it pretty much done, but it needed new carbs and a clutch and brakes. I changed the wheels. I should have kept the other ones. They were actually better, as I found out later. By this time, I was driving back and forth from Van Nuys into Northridge, where I was going to school, and then back home to Valencia, but with no air conditioner in the Z. It was killing me, man. I couldn't do it. I was just over it. So when I graduated, I bought my first new car because I took a job at Northrop up in Palmdale, and that's in the desert. So I had to have an air conditioner. So I bought a 1988 Nissan Pulsar, not the Japanese kind of Pulsar, the American thing, which is totally different. I bought it basically because it had T-tops and it had air conditioning, and my girlfriend loved the T-tops. Okay. So we also had a townhome when we were renting. So I started playing Datsun 510s because we have a garage now. So I had one that was pretty showy, especially under the hood. It wasn't fast. I had gold Carroll Shelby wheels, but all the Datsun meets were down in Los Angeles, and Palmdale was 90 miles from Los Angeles. And with a baby coming and a career, I couldn't get that. What I learned from these cars was this. If you buy a car that isn't very fast, you should do your research to see if the car can be modified to satisfy your purpose. You want a track car daily, you have to do the research. A few years later, the car came out called Ford Probe. I thought it was a good looking car, but I look around for any performance parts, there was nothing. Zero. So I said, nope, that's out. And then about 2 years later, I bought a 1993 Mustang GT. That car went through 3 versions. It was a street car, then a street/drag racer, and in its final form, a street and show car. The car had a 347 with a Vortec Cod drive supercharger with supporting heads, fuel system, a Tremec 2050 T56 transmission. I had a toddler in the light, so they had a baby seat in the back. And my wife was complaining, so I bought a 1996 Impala SS. I hooked up a Fogger nitrous system and hid it from her. And a few bolt-ons and a set of bare brakes, and that was my old man car. My Mustang was the first car I ever got in a magazine. It was also my first SEMA car. So I got the taste of that and I liked it. So I want to do more of that. But I sold that car in 1998 before the new owner could pick it up. The car got stolen from my office. We never found the car. So I had to refund his deposit. So what did I buy? I bought a white 1994 Toyota Supra, which became the Fast and Furious Supra. As you know, I painted the car bright. Why? Because bright colored cars get magazine covers. My sponsors wanted exposure, and so I started getting magazine featured for those cars. Turbo magazine was the first, I think it was. With my Supra doing show duties and magazine features, I needed a daily driver. So I bought a 99 Nissan Maxima. I was bored with the car within a month, so I painted a Viper GTS blue, and I added a supercharger and a set of big brakes and some suspension upgrades and insane audio video system. Are you seeing a pattern? Yes, you should be. Universal also cast that car for events, so I had to buy another daily driver because that car is going to be gone for 4 months. So I picked up the new Lexus IS 300. Nice car, but too slow for me. So when the Maxima was turned to me, I decided to sell the car, but not before it was featured in more global magazines. The Supra came back a couple of weeks later, and for the next 10 months, I was basically renting this Supra out to public appearances at theaters, car shows, and car shops. The money funded my next purchase, an R34 GTR from Motorex. This was called the Blackbird. So I instantly painted the car blue. Like my Supra, the GTR was a weekend driver, basically to and from car shows and maybe weekend car kind of stuff. I had a lot of support from my sponsors, like companies like StopTech, HRE Wheels, Nitrous Oxide, Sparco. I can go on and on and on. The car went to SEMA twice in a row while it was still black. This was the first street legal Nissan R34 GTR in the United States at the time. The first one, yes. But only after I painted the car blue, I finally got picked up for a number of magazine features, including Max Power UK, Redline UK, Super Straight United States, LS Magazine, Op Gazette, and Modified Luxury and Exotics, HCI, and 5 or 6 other issues around the world. I think in total it was about 12 or 13 features. What did I learn from owning these cars? 3 things. 1, never buy a car without seeing and driving it. Number 2, if the car looks a little shabby inside or outside, get a compression test and put it up on a rock and see what's going underneath. And look at the fluids, all of them. And one more thing, if you're going to try to make this car fast, you need to check if there's aftermarket support companies that sell go fast goodies if they don't move on. I see a lot of people all over the world buying these cars that like 1.2 liters and they're throwing money at it, doing Lambo doors, which is gay, putting in a turbocharger on it and all that kind of stuff. You're blowing your money. It's just never going to be fast, really. No coilovers and everything. So by this time, when I went through the Supras and the GTRs, it was about 2003, and I decided to fulfill my dream of buying a Lamborghini. The opportunity came when I got my GTR back from Universal after Too Fast, Too Furious. I had been racking up appearance fees for a few months with the car. Basically, it was a paperweight at this point. So one day I got an offer to sell the car for 3 times what I paid for the car. I said, okay. Got the money in the bank, wired to Fox Hills, and I got a 1998 Monterey Blue SVO Lamborghini Diablo. The car was driven by Jay Leno and Mario Andretti on the running of the Bulls to Pebble Beach in 1998. The car had a terrible yellow interior. It looks like a rapper's guy. So I ripped out the yellow leather and replaced it with tan suede. The Lamborghini was kind of fun to drive around until it started having problems. The master cylinder for the brakes failed, got me stranded. There was always something lighting up on the dash, and frankly, it wasn't particularly fast, really. My Supra was faster. One day I took it to Willow Springs for 5 laps, and it was overheating after 5 laps, and I said, this car is useless for me. So I sold the car, and I started looking around for a car that I can have a track day and drive it every day. So I bought a 2003 Porsche Twin Turbo. I drove this car for 2 years, did a lot of track days. So to keep the mileage low, I bought a new E46 M3. It was fun, but I missed building cars for car shows. So I did a wide body with giant brakes, full audio video system, and custom HRE wheels, and I painted the car favorite color of blue from the Lamborghinis. It too was featured in many magazines, United States and overseas. But one day I was flipping pages in the DuPont registry and I saw a 2001 Diablo 6.0. So I sold the Porsche and bought it. I fell in love with the car the moment I saw it. It was in perfect condition and it looked like it had just come off the assembly line, I swear to God. I couldn't wait to take it for a spin. Where did I go? I went to Las Vegas to see my buddies, okay? A lot of empty road there. And I was coming back from Las Vegas and I hit 203 on the speedometer. By this time, about 2005, we had the yellow Diablo, my wife's modified Lexus GS400, my BMW M3, and my movie Maxima. Too many cars, not a big garage. So I sold the Maxima to a movie car collector. About this time we were thinking to move to a bigger house, so we sold the Diablo. We decided to stay put the money in the bank, but the rest of it went to a Mercedes SL 600. This car had a V12 twin turbo making 495 horsepower. This car had electric gremlins. The windows would go up and down. It just did whatever they want to do. The alarms going off for no reason. The Benz was nice and it's classy, but it made me feel so old, so I started shopping for something. I really missed my Supra, so I bought a TRD wide-body Supra from Ryan Woon. That car was making 1,000 horsepower. This car was my weekend car and cars and coffee thing. Once my wife sold her Lexus GS 400, we had no more family car, so we needed a family car, so I ordered a 2007 Audi RS4. It had all-wheel drive, a V8 pumping out 420 horsepower, and it revved to almost 9,000 RPMs. During this period, I leased an AMG CLK F50 AMG. What a pile of that was. Electronic problems were worse than the other car. Alarms going off in the garage in the middle of the night. So I never went back to a Mercedes, and I never will. If you like it, go ahead, have fun with it, but I'm not gonna touch that piece of shit. I kept my Audi from 2007 till when I bought a BMW 750 Li, another piece of junk. Self-closing doors and self-opening doors when you're driving. The back door would open for no reason. The door handles got broken for whatever reason. Jeez. Valve seals failed at 40,000 miles. That was $7,000 to fix that. Transmission built at 55,000 miles. When I got all of this fixed, I was driving by a Nissan dealership. It was on Valentine's Day. I'll never forget it. I saw a trailer of brand new GTRs, and one of them was blue. Who likes blue? Me. That was Valentine's Day in 2014. I have had this car now 10 years. Longest I've ever had a car out of all of my cars. Although I modified this car, I kept it clean and tasteful. Most of the modifications were under the hood and suspension and brakes and that kind of stuff, and some aero. And I drive it every day, and it's fantastic. There were many other cars that I didn't mention. Cars like my Fiat 128 Spider, which was a vile pile of crap. My 1968 Firebird. Felt like the car was held together with rubber bands, and the windows leak, even if it was only drizzling. My only Honda in my life was a 1981 Honda Accord hatchback. It turned me off on Honda, and I never bought one again because I just don't like front wheel drive, not that car anyway. I drove a Prelude many years later and it was better, but front wheel drive is not my jam. I live in California, it doesn't rain really. And there were many other cars that I wanted over my life, like the VW Scirocco by the 1970s, a Pantera, a Z32, and many other cars that slipped through my fingers over the years. For me, picking a car is just like picking like a girlfriend. Just because she's pretty doesn't mean that she has everything you want. So before you ask, I'm going to tell you what are my best top 3 cars that I've owned. Well, that's a hard question, really. So I would say my R34 comes in 3rd place, my Audi RS4 is in 2nd place, and in 1st place is my R35 GTR. What am I going to buy next? I think I'm going to stay pat for a while. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends, and we'll see you next time.